So, with that, please, one more big round of applause to welcome to the Westminster Town Hall Forum, Sarah Morris.
Spring came early this year, or came late, I can't tell. Oh, I hardly know what day it is anyway. You could hold a calendar in front of my face, I'd press my finger to some square, declare with confidence it's this one, maybe. But there's a weirdness and a wildness and a heaviness to every moment lately. And I feel a little comfort knowing you probably feel these same things too. So even if we're far apart, I can still be with you. Weeks are flying by, the hours are just limping along. My heart can't settle on a song to fit the mood I'm in, which is a restlessness like I've never known. I've paced each inch of my kitchen floor, though my door's unlocked and there's an open road if I had the inclination. And there's a bitterness, but a sweetness too, and a darkness and a light that finds me daily. And I feel a little comfort knowing you probably feel these same things too. So even if we're far apart, I can still be with you. And I'm not sleeping well, so I'm rarely awake, and I end each night with a prayer for strength and the wisdom to take this time, this space to root down. Trust one day we'll bloom out again. And I feel a little comfort knowing you probably feel these same things too. So even if we're far apart, I can still, yes, I can still, oh, I can still feel a little comfort knowing you probably feel these same things too. So even if we're far apart, I can still, yes, I can still be with you. Be with you. Thank you so much. I get to move the mic stand up. I gotta tell you, that almost never, ever happens. What a day. My name is Sarah Morris. I'm really honored to be here. A hint of the grand design, a peek at the master plan, a whisper that the cards I need are already in my hand. A couple of neon signs, shaped like an arrow, saying right this way to the path I'm meant to travel. A bit of confirmation I belong where I am at. I could use some of that. Oh, I've been stumbling around a little blind, 'cause I miss the forest every time, but I can tell you the secrets of a single pie. I get lost, but I don't mind, as long as the story melted heart. Put some brand new strings on this old guitar and sing my way through another false start. If I'm lucky, the words will come out right, and phrases at once simple and sublime. And as long as they are true, I don't care if they rhyme. Wouldn't that be nice? Oh, I've been stumbling around a little blind, so I miss the forest every time, but I can tell you the secrets of a single pine. I get lost, but I don't mind, as long as the story I find is all mine. The miles and miles of right, wrong turns, the lessons I've tried hard to learn, each beautiful scar I've earned all mine. Oh, I've been stumbling around a little blind, so I miss the forest every time, but I can tell you the secrets of a single pine. I get lost, but I don't mind, as long as the story I find is all mine. All mine. Ooh, 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 ooh. Thank you so much. It's such a beautiful room to be in, and it's made more beautiful by looking at all of your faces and knowing that you're here to listen to an author and a great thinker in the middle of your day. I think that's just about the coolest thing ever. I wrote this next song for my mom when I sort of sensed that she was in need of a reminder of how amazing she was, because she is. You might need that reminder. Sometimes I need that reminder. So this song could be for you too. It's called Champagne on a Wednesday. It's Tuesday. We're sitting down to learn and think. So we could call it Learning and Thinking on a Tuesday. It's really, the title could just be whatever feels celebratory and profound for you. But if you did somehow have access to champagne on a Tuesday, that's nice too. Champagne on a Wednesday, why not give me a reason? Well, okay then, sit back and watch this cork go flying. It does so. You're laughing, holding the glasses, they overflow. We're high before the foam reaches our lips. I can't stop smiling. Oh, this is all I really wanted. Everything I need. Look at you, letting go. Yeah, if you could see what I see, you are effervescent light as air. You're bright as the moon. Ooh, the full kind on a clear night. Glittery hot air balloon. You are effervescent, incandescent, the sparkle of a billion stars. impress all the neighbors. Would you do me a favor, put on something that makes you feel like dancing? We'll find ourselves an empty parking lot, turn up the volume on this old boombox that's been collecting dust since we were 17. I mean, this is all I really wanted, everything I need. Shrug that worry from your shoulders, travel back in time with me. You are effervescent, light as air, bright as the moon. Ooh, the full kind on a clear night, a glittery hot air balloon. You are effervescent, incandescent, the sparkle of a billion stars. I've never known anything as brilliant as you are, as you are. I've heard the stories you tell yourself. No wonder you're not sleeping well. Let me paint you something new, something closer to the truth that you are, 'cause you are effervescent, light as air, you're bright as the moon. Ooh, the full kind on a clear night, a glittery hot air balloon. You are effervescent, incandescent, the sparkle of a billion stars. I've never known anything as brilliant as you are, as you are. 'Cause you are, you are, you are, you are. You are, you are. Thank you so much. Your calloused fingers, my calloused heart. I bet you earned your lack of feeling by working hard. Well, I have been this way since the start. Your eyes are closing, mine don't blink. Your breath is slowing down, exposing more than you think. I wash my hands in the bathroom sink. You are so far, so far out of your league here. You should leave here, you should go, for you're in so far, so far over your head. You can't find the sand when you reach with your toes. You should know when forced to choose between kindness and the truth. I will be, I will be, I will be ruthless. You reach your hand out, my arms are still. Oh, I enjoyed you for a while, but you have lost that certain thrill. You call my name and it sounds too shrill. You are so far, so far out of your league here. You should leave here, you should go, before for you're in so far over your head. You can't find the sand when you reach with your toes. You should know when forced to choose between kindness and the truth. I will be ruthless. Ruthless. Is it any consolation to know you're not alone? I leave a wake of devastation wherever I roam. Is it any consolation to know you're not the first? And if this hurts enough, your skin is bound to toughen up, and your calloused fingers will match your calloused heart. You will ever your lack of feeling by working hard. Well, I have been this way since the start. You are so far out of your league here. You are so far out of your league here. You should leave here. You should go. You should know when forced to choose between kindness and the truth. I will be ruthless. Ruthless. Ooh. Thank you so much. I like to sing a lot about kindness and about embracing kind of our big bleeding hearts. And so that song, when I wrote it, which is sort of the flip side, felt really uncomfortable for me, but that's okay. And also today is the equinox, when we have equal parts light and dark, and we all do hold that. So it felt like a good day to dip into that a little bit. If you're just joining, my name is Sarah Morris, and I'm just beyond thrilled to be here, but I'm playing it, as cool as I can. I'm gonna sing a little song that I wrote for my son. I'm gonna sing it where it belongs. Come back, I see you out there wandering. Come back, oh, I've missed you so. Come back, whenever you are ready to come back. Rest a while before, of course, again you go. Come back, tell me all your stories. Come back, show me the world through your gaze. Come back, I'll gladly lose track of the hours. Come back, I swear I will not count the days. Come back, if you like, I can hold you. Come back, my arms soft as they are strong. Come back, I have prepared my shoulder. Come back for the weight of you to press in and then pass over. whisper of a dream that you'd belong to me any longer than a moment. The notion you'd be satisfied with stillness for any stretch of time. Those illusions are not mine. Come back, less a plea, more a promise. Come back, no strings, the terms made clear. Come back, should you grow weary of the constant motion. Come back, my darling, I will be here. Thank you so much. I got 2 more for you. I can tell you were something else once upon a time. Oh, in years of dust left you covered up, while underneath you still shine. Oh, I'm not afraid of getting my hands dirty. I'm gonna roll up my sleeve. I'm gonna make you believe. Oh, people these days throw things away at the first sign of trouble, at the first sign of trouble. Then they wander around, wondering how they're surrounded by all that rubble, surrounded by all that rubble. Let them run off searching for something clean and new. I prefer the broken things like me and you. Don't feel alone because we're everywhere. Hearts in need of a little repair. I bet you're tired of that heavy load you carry with you wherever you go. Well, let me help you lay it down. Ooh, and all that devastation in your past, we'll watch it shatter just like glass. Then sweep it up off the ground. Ooh, oh, I can't erase these scars or keep you from hurting. But what if it's enough to start with a gentle touch? Oh, people these days throw things away at the first sign of trouble, at the first sign of trouble. Then they wander around, wondering how they're surrounded by all not the faded glory. I'll stitch it back together, and you can do the same for me. Oh, people these days throw things away at the first sign of trouble, at the first sign of trouble. Then they wander around, wondering how they're surrounded by all that rubble, surrounded by all that rubble. Let 'em run off searching for something clean and new. I prefer the broken things like me and you. Don't feel alone because we're everywhere. Hearts in need of a little repair. Hearts in need of a little repair.
Thank you so much. I know that you are in for such a wonderful hour of deep thinking and feeling, and I've got one more song about how darn hard it is sometimes to be a human to offer up before I go. Again, my name is Sarah Morris. Thank you so much, Westminster Forum, for having me, and to Keith for making it sound so good. This is called Between Here and There.
Between here and there, between now and then, there's a wide plain and a deep canyon. There are oceans vast and there are mountains high. There are forests thick with ancient pines. And it's a lot to see through, and it's a lot to look past. It's a lot to take in, and it's a lot to ask. And it's almost maybe too much to hold. I know. Between right and wrong, between weak and strong, there are infinite ways to shade in gray. There is chin up proud, and there are caving shoulders. There are stones you throw, and then there are boulders. And it's a lot to carry, and it's a lot to move. The wisdom you'll gain and the plenty you'll lose. And it's almost maybe too much to hold. I know. I know. Does it make it any better? Does it make it any worse? Finding brand new words for these age-old hurts. Any certainty we muster, it's only for sure. And the story's the same wherever you go. Between won't and will, between storm and still, there is howling fear and quiet brilliance. There is darkest night, and there are mornings bright from gold and blue intertwined. And it's almost blinding, and it's hard to hear the questions keep coming and the answers are right there. And it's almost maybe too much to hold. I know. Does it make it any better? Does it make it any worse? Finding brand new words for these age-old hurts. Any certainty we muster, it's only for sure. And the story's the same wherever you go. And it's a lot to see through, and it's a lot to look past. It's a lot to take in, and it's a lot to ask. And it's almost maybe too much to hold. And I know that you're tired and wanna let go, and the best I can offer is you don't have to do this alone.
Big thanks to Sarah Morris. Thank you for opening things up so beautifully for us. Hi, my name is Margaret Fox. I am Associate Pastor for Adult Ministries, and I want to welcome you to Westminster Presbyterian Church, home of the Westminster Town Hall Forum since 1980. We are really glad that you all are here today and joining us on the live stream as well. Please take some time after the program to enjoy our spaces, the art gallery, the library, and of course Westminster Hall, where there will be a breads and spreads reception following today's talk. And now please help me in welcoming our forum director, Tane Danger.
That's great. Yay. Oh, thank you. That's very nice. That's good. Hi, everybody. Hey! Hi, everybody. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Westminster Town Hall Forum. My name is Tane Danger, and I apologize for not ordering more programs. This is such a great turnout today. Thank you all so much for being here. If you have never been to the Westminster Town Hall Forum before, welcome. This is what we do. We invite voices of conscience to address the issues of the day from an ethical perspective, and there are few people that I would be more excited to have at this particular moment to give us an ethical perspective on one of the biggest issues and set of topics going on in our world right now than the one of a kind Kara Swisher, who is joining us today. Yeah, that's an applause line. Yeah. So all of these programs are entirely free and open to all here in person on the live stream. That is overwhelmingly made possible by individual supporters and donors like you. So this is the part, people get really annoyed when I spend a lot of time making a pitch for folks to become donors to the Town Hall Forum. But I do it because it's true, like that is literally the only way we can do these programs. But I'll make you a deal. If every single person here makes a donation today, I will not bring this up again for at least a month. If everybody here becomes a sustaining donor and signs up to do monthly donations, then I won't bring it up for the rest of the year if you like. That would be great. So, but thank you all so much. We're very happy to have you all. We do have a few folks I want to thank. Our season this year, this spring, is supported in part by M.A. Mortensen Companies. We're very grateful to them for their support. And then we have our amazing media partners in bringing these programs to folks. Minnesota Public Radio, which has been recording and broadcasting Westminster Town Hall Forums for more than 30 years. It's here today. MinPost, our friends at MinPost, which is a nonprofit, community-supported newsroom, see their coverage of critical issues, challenges, and opportunities facing Minnesota at minpost.com. Thanks as well to our friends from Sahan Journal who are here. Sahan Journal's mission is to provide reliable, high-quality journalism for immigrants and communities of color in Minnesota. You can learn more and see their really tremendous coverage at sahanjournal.com. One last little housekeeping piece. So we're going to have Ms. Swisher join us up here, and we're going to have a conversation. If you've been to these before, you know that normally kind of wait till halfway through the program, and we ask you to hand your questions forward. But I am guessing that there's probably a lot of people that already have questions that they want to ask, right? People are nodding. And so we made the executive decision, if you have questions that you really want to ask and you don't want to wait till halftime, you can write those on cards at any point during the program and hold them up, and our tremendous and wonderful ushers will come around and grab them, and they'll help bring them to me so that we can weave them in throughout the conversation. Okay, with that, I'm very excited for this. This is going to be great. All right, here we go. Kara Swisher is an award-winning journalist, author, and podcaster. She's been covering tech since the early 1990s. While still in college, Kara Swisher got her start at the Washington Post. She was among the first to recognize the potential of the internet, accurately predicting that, quote, everything that could be digitized would be digitized. She went on to work for the Wall Street Journal, joining Walt Mossberg to start the groundbreaking All Things D conference, as well as pioneering online tech sites. It is only a slight exaggeration to say that Kara Swisher has interviewed almost everyone. This is a long list. Steve Jobs, Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, Bill Gates, Bob Iger, Larry Page, Sergey Brin, Meg Whitman, Peter Thiel, Mark Zuckerberg are just a few of the people who she has made sweat, figuratively, and in one case, literally. Swisher is the host of the podcast On with Kara Swisher and the co-host of the Pivot podcast with Scott Galloway, both distributed by New York Magazine. And her brand new book, which we are very excited to hear more about today, is Burn Book, a tech love story. It is both a memoir and a chronicle of how tech came to be at the center of economic and political power. Please help me in welcoming to the Westminster Town Hall Forum, Kara Swisher.
Hi, everybody. Wow. You know,
You turn this on?
I have it on, yeah.
Yeah, you're good.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
God, Klobuchar said you were friendly, but I had no idea. Yeah, we can talk about her.
Thank you so much for being here. Absolutely thrilled to have you. The book is part memoir, part tech chronicle. And so actually, I like starting sort of at the baseline.
Sure.
So for somebody who doesn't consider themselves like a tech person, has never really what is it that you love about tech? Like, what would you say to somebody?
A lot. That's what the book's about. It's about a love story gone wrong, really. And so it's not the tech that I don't still love, which I do. It's the people, as is often the case with you still love, but boy, some people you've been with are problematic for all of us, I think. And so it's about a journey, my journey in covering this from the beginning. Like, I met Larry and Sergey, who started Google, in the garage they started the company in, which was an actual garage. I met Jeff Bezos when he had not a dollar to his name. And now he's one of the world's richest people. I met most of these people at the beginning of their careers, so it's sort of like meeting Thomas Edison at an early age, or I wouldn't really want to meet Henry Ford, but something like that. I was there at the beginning before, and I actually believed in what they were doing. And I myself, during the course of the time I was there, became an entrepreneur myself, which I already had entrepreneurial tendencies from an early age. And so as they were changing the world, I was trying to change media, my world, and also chronicling what they were doing. And at some point, it got not good. Things turned.
Well, do you remember, you were meeting all these people, but there must have been something about particularly, this industry, like what these people were doing, that was a hook, because you could have gone in, you actually had an offer to become a political reporter in a pretty high place, but you were like, no, this is what I want.
Well, that would be the 10th ring of hell for me, honestly. And I would have ended up covering the whole Monica Lewinsky. I've interviewed Monica since then, who's terrific. But I thought Washington was in general, and I don't mean, it's not just Washington, because I can't stand people who like sort of just immediately trash the government. And like, I had a Tea Party person call me once, I don't know how they got my number, in San Francisco, but they're like, government isn't good. And I go, I stay on the line with these people. And I was like, oh, really? Interesting.
How do these people get your number?
I don't know. It was robocalls, whatever. Okay. They got my number. And they were like, yeah, the government's really bad. I go, interesting. Can I ask you a question? And they were like, sure. Because they thought they had a good one, right? Because they got a San Francisco one, finally. And I said, did you drive to work today on a road? And they said, yeah. And I said, I'm not supposed to curse here, but that's the friggin' government who paid for that, just so you know. And I said, and your meat's not tainted, and World War II sure went our way, or you'd be goose-stepping down, Constitution Avenue or something like that. And I went on and on about the things government did. And I said, I think it's really irresponsible to take these reductive views one way or the other, which I think has gotten worse in recent times, obviously. And the idea of a worldwide global information network is an enormous idea, like the ability, and I thought it would be about commonality, that it would bring us together. That's the dream, this which I talk about in the book, the Star Trek dream, right? Where, this international group of, this global, universal group of people, all of different colors, wearing fantastic looking costumes, like it's a Benetton ad, and they go all over the globe, all over the universe, and
wearing beautiful clothes.
Yeah, all over. They boldly go everywhere, and then they meet villains, and the villains get good. You know what I mean? They convince people. We all need to get along. Like that's a dream of technology.
That was the
right?
dream of tech.
That's the dream of tech. And then you have the Star Wars thing, which is about the Death Star. Really, evil people prevail in that. And I've interviewed George Lucas about this, and it's a Holocaust movie. It really is. It's where evil does win, and where heroes are flawed, and where things don't actually turn out that well for people. It really doesn't. Much death and everything else. And so that's a different vision of tech used for nefarious purposes. But I had subscribed to the first one. I've been a kid with Star Trek. It obviously had an impact on me. But it was really, that was the dream of Steve Jobs, too. We had interviewed him. He talked about it.
Well, there is a theme that comes in over and over again in your book, and we talked a little bit about it upstairs. So thank you. Your father passed away when you were very young.
Yep.
And you brought up Steve Jobs, that this is actually in some ways something that you kind of almost had as a connection in certain ways.
We did.
In that he was living with what he didn't talk about publicly, but in retrospect, we know it was terminal illness.
He did talk about it publicly. He didn't reveal every aspect of his illness to people, but
that sort of sense of life is short, mortality is potentially around the corner, was motivating for Steve Jobs, and I think it's fair to say in your book it's been motivating for you.
I think one of the greatest speeches, you should both read it because he was a very good writer. He happened to be unlike most tech people. He also did it at the Stanford commencement address, and it was about death and his own illness and not just what it motivated, but how he conducted his life, thinking about mortality almost continually. And if you really think about the stuff that he really helped invent, and he wasn't the only inventor, and he never claimed to be, by the way, as many tech people now take credit for everything, which is, it's not true. It's just not actually true. But the stuff he led, I would say, he did much of the real innovations when he was dying, when he knew he was dying. Like, we're all dying, right? Let's be clear. We're in a church, everyone. FYI, you're all going to die. And this church will be here, you won't. And so he conducted a lot of his creativity. It spurred his creativity. And I always felt the same. I felt that my dad dying really gave me a sense that I had limited time. I had a sense of time that other people don't have, I think, because of that experience. And I think about death a lot, but not in like an obsessive, creepy Wednesday Addams way. I don't do that. Like, that's not my...
But it's been motivating because you, as
Yeah.
you have jumped in headfirst into a lot of these things, and in talking about the people that you cover, the ways that you cover them, the way that you
Yes.
have done media.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, how...
I don't have time. I don't have time for this, and including stuff I don't like. And so I think one of the things I like about tech is the immediacy, the urgency of the people in it. They're making things. And I'm a maker, just like that. I kind of hate that word when they use it in tech, but it's actually the correct word. I'm like a cook. I make things. I make whatever I'm making, a cake or a fried chicken or whatever. And so I really do feel the sense of constant change, which I like. I think it's one of the greatest aspects of this country. It's also a negative aspect because we forget everything. Like yesterday, what did he do? An insurrection? No. Like that kind of stuff. Like, yes. But we forget, we also forgive in a weird way. It's not really forgiveness, it's just a memory drop. But there is a forward momentum to our country that's very different. It's a very different momentum, and some of it is really warped, and some of it is really good.
So a lot of the book is about that culture that permeates this world, the Silicon Valley tech world, and you have a lot to take people to task for over that culture.
Yes, they're badly behaved these days.
They are badly behaved. It is you use the terms multiple times, I think, 7th grade boys, like, is a lot of sort of the...
An insult to 7th grade boys, but yes.
Yeah. And I guess I'm wondering, was that inevitable with the way that tech was
No,
set up?
not at all. Because what happened when you got there, which was really interesting, I honestly blame the venture capitalists, really, because all they want to do is make money, right? And the first line of this book is, so it was capitalism after all, because a lot of these people cosplayed it being saviors, we're going to change the world, we're trying to bring, if I heard the word community one more time from Mark Zuckerberg, I would want to really poke my eye out. Like, it wasn't true. That's not what he was doing. He was selling advertising, really, in the end. But he liked to think of himself that way. Same thing with Elon. That's a whole nother...
We'll get there.
We'll get there.
Yeah.
That's a Howard Hughes story in the process. Except Howard Hughes was a lot nicer. So it just was. It was an environment. The minute I got there, and Walt Moss, it's Mossberg, not Mossberg.
Sorry,
it's okay. He was like, go in with your cleats on, parachute in with your cleats on with these people because they're going to change the world. And I agreed with him. I thought they were going to change the world, and my hope was that it was for the better. But when you got there, you started to see an environment, especially early on, which was fun, right? Fun, but it was They said it was childlike. I said it was childish. You know what I mean? When you saw grown people they had a lot of toys, a lot of scooters, a lot of slides. There's a scene in the book where they try to get me to go down a slide at a company called Excite, and I'm declining the wonderful opportunity to be 4 again. And they kept saying, everybody does it. It's fun. You're no fun. I'm like, I'm no fun. That's right. I'm 38. I don't do slides. And again, I told them, I'm like, I didn't like it at 4, and I'm not doing it now. So it's not happening for Kara Swisher. So there was a lot of juvenilization, and it was largely of straight white men, because that's who runs the place. It just is. And listen, I have 3 sons. I like straight white men, and they seem to be straight at this point. But they really are, kind of. It's really amazing. It's so fascinating because I'm obviously gay, and I have all these, I had J.D. Vance, like, scream at me. That's all he does these days. He used to be normal, by the way. He really did. His change is it's all about ambition and feckless ambition, really. And he wrote me that liberals don't believe in the future. He tweeted at me some asshole thing. Sorry, I'm not supposed to curse here, but too bad. He's an asshole. And I said, I have 4 kids, and you have, 2? I was like, and I'm a lesbian and you're straight. I said, do you have a problem with your wife? I said that on Twitter because I was like, don't insult me for saying I don't believe in the future. I have twice as many kids as you do. So you better get busy because the lesbians are totally lapping you with the children. So anyway, so it's the juvenilization is what drove me crazy. It was this idea that you could live in this Peter Pan stayed. And you know what happens to Peter Pan. He goes to Donkey Island, right? Like,
Right.
I'm not revealing any plot point.
Yeah, the statute of limitations on Peter Pan.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, and so that's what it felt like. And I kept thinking, Donkey Island, this is where we are. And the venture capitalists would coddle these men and treat them like, one, that they were saviors. All they were money bags in front of their eyes. That's what they were. That's what they wanted out of them. And instead, they treat them like that. They abrogated them from responsibility. They didn't have responsibility for their inventions. They're something Scott Galloway calls the idolatry of innovators. It was idolatry is what it was. They were like golden calves, little baby calves that we kept dancing around. And I get it, but they're selling stuff. That's what they're doing. And you don't do this to bankers. You don't do this to an insurance company people or bankers or anyone else. Like, the CEO of Target has never said to me, I'm here for world peace. He's like selling shit. Like, he's selling stuff, right? That's what he's doing. I feel good about that relationship because I understand what he's doing. I understand he's got shareholders. But these guys had to be saviors on top of it, which is kind of weird.
I'm going to pick up on your Peter Pan metaphor because I love that book. And in Peter Pan, there's an inevitable split because Peter doesn't want to grow up. Wendy does.
Right, she does.
So are you Wendy in some ways?
Oh. That's an interesting thing because part of it is their desperate need for parenting, right? And I'm a pretty good parent. I have really nice kids, but I'm not their parent. And so I think their juvenilization, bothered me a great deal. I was like, you don't need to be childish to invent things. It's not true. It's untrue. You don't have to be, the famous Facebook saying, which is a software saying, which is move fast and break things. They're talking about code, but why would you pick that one? There's so many sayings that you could pick. They picked that one, and I thought, well, that's interesting. They want to break. They want to disrupt. All their words are vaguely violent and never about fixing, changing, improving. They're never adult words. And so I tended to split adults from who I considered man boys or overgrown children, essentially. And you're seeing it right now. They'll say whatever they feel like. They don't care about the thing. And again, Elon's the patron saint of this nonsense. And one of the things that drives me crazy there is I did an interview with Mark Benioff, who I do like a great deal, I think is an adult, except for his desperate need to have me meditate with him all the time, which I'm like, have you seen me? I don't meditate, my friend. So he's like, my guru's in town. You want to meditate? I'm like, I would rather literally do anything else than doing that. But he was someone who I like a lot, but even he was saying, I had a beef with him because Elon had tweeted something very anti-gay about Paul Pelosi, who I actually just had dinner with the other night, and he's doing really well, thankfully. But this guy got the crap beat out of him by a crazy person who was radicalized online by QAnon, right? And with a hammer, old guy hit with a hammer. And Elon tweeted out that it possibly, he retweeted a thing that was a theory that it was a gay love triangle. It was so hateful. This was right after this guy almost died. And that was it for me. I was like, all right, now this isn't funny. This isn't boob jokes and penis jokes. This is this is crazy. And it's dangerous. And it was dangerous. And Paul got a lot of death threats after that and everything else, after he had been almost killed, which was an astonishingly cruel thing to do. And it was a real wake-up call for me. A lot. That's the most recent stuff, but it had gone back to the book begins when they all go to Trump Tower after representing to me that they believed in the greater immigration, that they believed in tolerance, that they believed in this and that. I'm sorry, I didn't finish the Mark Benioff thing. Mark basically said to me this interview, and he had been out front on anti-gay stuff in Ohio with Mike Pence, and he goes on and on about it, and fine, great, ally, fantastic, good for you. And then he lets Elon do this stuff, and he excuses it, right, as if there should be an excuse. And his excuse was, well, he can land a rocket on a surfboard. And I was like, that's the excuse for saying something so vehemently anti-gay or now anti-trans? He has a trans kid, Elon does, by the way. It's not an excuse. And that started to really rankle at me, the hypocrisy of things they said and said they represented versus what they lived, which was all about money.
Well, I'm gonna ask more, and we'll come back to the sort of start of the book, 2016. But just one last piece on you, because I think that there's a lot of folks here who are fans of yours, because you are a pretty remarkable, incredible
Thank
person.
you. Wow, that's nice.
And
I'm going to leave now.
Okay, yeah, it's a good note. But you've made a career of like sitting and standing up to folks
Yes.
in this space. And going to that identity piece, I am wondering if part of that is you were often the woman, like in some of these spaces.
Yes, yeah,
you
the
were
Wendy
gay,
thing.
and
Yeah,
how
yeah.
does that play into it?
Actually, the gay thing was helpful, interesting, because
I get it.
they
yeah.
think you're like them. So I was like a dude, right? For some reason, it's so ridiculous. And I tell this story because I was with a bunch of venture capitalists, of course, and there was a woman going by who was a very prominent executive, happens to be good looking, and they started to say, oh, she looks good, their boobs, whatever. And Cara, what do you think? And I literally looked at them and go, still a feminist? Wow. And they were like, what? I go, that's disgusting. I'm not, like, lesbians don't do that. Like, what is wrong with you, you juveniles? And like, they were all like 52. And I was like, really? This is what we need to talk about? This executive's breasts? Like, and they were like, you're no fun. I'm like, I'm no fun. That's correct. That I'm no fun when objectifying women. I just can't do it. I know, crazy. So I think it does help me in certain ways. It does, because they do want to, it does. I don't know why, just they feel more comfortable, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and that combined with the sense of, I've only got a limited amount of time.
Well, I don't have time to listen to bullshit. That's really what it is. You know, it's like when they say something, I'm like, no, I can't do that. And I think what happens is my inner dialogue just comes out. And so when they say something that I think is untrue or I know to be untrue, I say that's actually untrue. And I think most people are polite about it. They're like, oh, well, maybe some people say. And I'm like, listen, I think you're spreading propaganda and misinformation. You're making bank off of it. Let's discuss. And I think that's much way to do it. So I think that's fair.
Yeah.
I think it's unfair not to say what you think, actually. And I don't mean to be rude about it, but these are the richest people on earth. I'm sure they can take it somehow.
So
But they're victims, you know.
I want to come back to what... There was we were talking a moment, you mentioned the beginning of your book is this scene in 2016. Donald Trump has just been elected, and there's a group of tech leaders who were all kind of called to meet at the White House.
No, not the White House, at Trump Tower.
Yes, at Trump Tower at this point, excuse me. And this is a breaking point for you, where you all of a sudden, some of these folks who you thought you knew who they were, all of a sudden
That's correct.
are
No,
different.
it had started. We had written extensively about Facebook's privacy violations. I understood they were rapacious information thieves. We had talked about the monopoly Google was trying to have. We had written about it extensively, the monopoly power that they had over search, which was critical at this point. We talked about the decline of media with these irresponsible tech people who took all the good stuff and didn't pay for the bad stuff, essentially safety. So we had written a lot about that. So I was already on my way to massive disappointment at this point. Like, are you gonna, it was like the penny had long dropped. But I think with the Trump thing was that he had spent a lot of time talking about immigration, which of course now is the big topic in this election, or one of them. And he had gone on about a Muslim ban, right? And two of the people going were Muslim. Like, and Elon Musk was an immigrant. There were a lot of immigrants at this meeting. And one of the things that drove me crazy was that they didn't tell anyone they were going. You know how when you go see the president, you're like, we're all going to have a meeting with the president. They hid it. They did it in a quiet way, which they never do anything quiet, these people. They literally are. They're so performative, you know, it's really kind of exhausting. There's such a look at me culture, even though they pretend they're not. And so they all went without letting anybody know, like reporters didn't know, and I found out and wrote a story about it. And I called a lot of people who were going, and I said, are you going to say anything about immigration? Because, you know, and I counted the number of terrible things he said about immigrants. He said 412 times that immigrants were rapists. He said that they're speaking, you know, that's like, look in the mirror, sir. A judge said so. He can sue George Stephanopoulos all he wants, but that's what he is. Sorry, everyone, but that's what he is. by a jury, 2 juries, by the way. And so, so I'm getting off topic because I'm thinking, what an asshole.
So they're all going, but they're not making a big deal about it. They don't do a photo
And they
shoot.
don't do a photo op. They don't, well, he does. He takes pictures, which of course he does. At this point, Donald Trump is who he is. We know who he is. It's these people that I have a problem with. And so, they go there. They don't want to tell anyone. When they find out, I know, they're like, don't write about it. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, of course I'm going to write about it. And I said, are you going to say anything about his immigration remarks or his remarks, racist remarks? These are all things you all say you stand for. Like, they're very performative in their, like, aren't we the most tolerant people on earth? I was like, are you going to not say anything? And this, again, is the most, this is the richest people in the history of the world running the most powerful companies. So they might have, they're not at risk, right? They're not at risk compared to other people. So they have the opportunity to point out his immigration statements are egregious. They don't. And so the only person who I actually had a good discussion with was Elon about this. And I said, are you going? Well, and he, of course, moved into savior mode where he's like, I can change his mind, Cara. I have the power. And I was like, okay, Jesus, great. But why don't you say something publicly? Because coming from you, and by the way, he wasn't this famous then, by the way. He was less famous. But none of them said a word. None of them. And they went, including Sheryl Sandberg, who was a Hillary person, right? Just didn't say. There was all this sexual harassment thing. Lean in. Why don't you lean in, Sheryl? I think I said that to her. I'm like, time to lean in, which was her book. And she didn't lean. She leaned back, I guess, because she wanted tax breaks. She wanted whatever she wanted. It wasn't enough to walk the talk. And so I wrote a story calling them sheeple, like that they're the, and I was like, they're sheeple. They're people who are sheep. And all they want is the tax breaks. They want no regulation. They want government contracts. And let's stop pretending what these people are, other than capitalists who want all our money and they don't want to pay the price of their inventions. And so it was a moment. I was like, you're kidding me. And when they left, they said nothing. That's the thing. And he got a great photo op. It legitimized him in the eyes of tech. And
so would Kara Swisher today, what would Kara Swisher of today say to Kara Swisher of 1997 about as she's going into this?
Oh, well, life is about that. It's a journey, right? It's a journey of learning things. And I don't think I didn't go on like the fanboys. I was very clear, right? If you look at my early journal stories, I wrote one story. One of my first stories was the 10 things tech people will say to you that are a lie, including we're here to change the world. There are no, that was one of them that drove me crazy. We're here to change the world. I'm like, how? Like, I should have asked how at that moment, because I feel like maybe it wasn't good. And the second one was, we have no titles. They loved that one. Nobody has a title. I'm like, well, why do you have complete control and can't be fired? Interesting, but you have a title, don't you? You just aren't saying it, which is king, right? Correct? And so I wrote a whole piece about this. So I was on to them, and I think one of the things Walt really pressed me is to hold them to task. They're going to run the world. And I did have that sense, and I wasn't a fanboy. I wasn't in love with gadgets. The interviews I did with Bill Gates, who we did not get along because I didn't do these interviews, weren't, oh, your head is so big, you're so smart, how did you become so smart? Those are the kind of questions that were being asked because they were rich, really, pretty much. That was why.
So we have a question from the audience on this right now. So this person says, you reflect a lot on trust in the book and in other places.
Yep.
Are there sectors, leaders, organizations that you think in the tech context are worthy of trust?
Yes, there's a whole chapter called People I Like, which is short. But, I think look, everyone's flawed, and these are businesses. I think let's begin with that they're businesses. They're here to take your information, suck it up, chew it up, vomit it back at you, and charge you. That's what they're doing. I'm sorry to tell you, but it's your information. Guess who paid for the internet? You did. The American taxpayer. Guess who paid for the cleanup of January 6th, the Capitol? The American taxpayer. Guess who was part of the cause of it? Facebook. I'm sorry, it's just the case. It's just a fact, but they don't get to be prosecuted. They don't get liable. They can't be sued. Nobody at the Capitol who got beat up, those cops, can't sue Facebook. They can sue other people. They can't sue Facebook for any culpability. Now, Facebook might win in the lawsuit, but they should be able to be sued, right? Even Donald Trump gets sued. Everyone gets sued. And so, there are good people. Let me talk about some of the good people. Often there are people who are at the beginnings of things who have a really good, sensible attitude towards it and what it is. Someone I just interviewed, Dr. Fei Li, was one of the earliest AI innovators, really great. I haven't heard of her as much as Sam, and I happen to like Sam Altman, but we'll see. We'll see. I told him, I'm watching you. Don't go to the dark side. Well, he's a little bit on the dark side, but that's okay. Everybody is. And so, Fei Li is amazing. She's at Stanford, and she's one of the early AI innovators. I do like Tim Cook, and I do like I don't love everything about Apple. Certainly their behavior in China is problematic at best. It's bad. Let's just say it's bad. They have to behave the way the Chinese Communist Party wants them to because they want to do business there. It's kind of a death grip with each other, the country and Apple. And so they've improved on some of those issues that they had at some of those factories. But they do value privacy. But that's their business plan, is to sell you stuff, not sell you advertising, so they can be on the better angel side of the equation. But I happen to think I liked him, and I like how he operates. I like Satya Nadella, who runs Microsoft. I think he's a really good leader. I think he's fair. He's got I tend to look at the people who are good, that have a broader sense of the world and a responsibility around the world, and they take that responsibility seriously. And Reid Hoffman's another person, a venture capitalist, I just happen to agree with him politically, but he's also a terrific guy, and he's a thoughtful guy. Most of them are well-read, well-educated. Quite a big problem in tech is a lot of them have never taken a history course ever, and you're sort of like, and when you're like, a typical thing was an engineer when it was doing Facebook Live. They show it to reporters before they put it out, and I look at it and I'm like, oh boy, this one, Facebook Live. I said, what happens when a bully uses it to bully someone on it? What happens when someone commits suicide? What happens when someone has racist rants or things like that are damaging to the body politic? What happens if a crazy person puts a GoPro on their head and massacres people? Like, that's going to happen. That's obviously going to happen. And they kept trying to go, but it's Chewbacca Mom, Cara. And I was like, yeah, I like Chewbacca Mom, but I'm going to focus in on the killers, okay, if you don't mind for a second. And I said, what are the safety things? What are the kill switches? What are you doing to make this safe for people? And as if I was speaking another language to them. Like, safety didn't matter because they'd never been unsafe in their lives, these people, because of where they are in society. And one of the engineers was like, you're a bummer. Like, he literally said, you're a bummer.
I see a theme coming through.
I know, I'm a bummer. I was like, have you not, let me keep you up to speed on some things. Let me give you, humans are a bummer. Like, they have been a bummer.
Well, this is,
and then it happened in Christchurch. It happened right away, so.
You studied propaganda.
I did.
As part of your undergrad
Correct.
work.
Yeah.
And again, I feel like you are chronicling things that you are seeing that sort of line up with some of that.
I saw it right away.
We have a question here that maybe feeds into this.
Sure.
Somebody's wondering, how did we allow billionaires to gain so much power, and then what do you do to change it?
Well, money, right? Money. It's really money. It comes down to it. I think, it's as if what's happened is tech has managed, there's no regulation on tech. Just be clear. Don't lie to you. There is none. They can't murder people, sort of. But they do daily with some of the stuff they put out, right? It does it in a different way. It's not as obvious as cigarettes, but there's addiction issues, there's self-esteem issues, suicide issues, porn issues with teen boys. I mean, the studies are very clear of the deleterious effects of too much, and it's addictive, by the way, FYI. It's also addictive. And so we've allowed it because they've managed to slip in, this industry has managed to slip through a time when our politics are so fractured, and they've made it more fractured, and then they take advantage of the fracturing. And so in trying to regulate them, they start screaming about the First Amendment, of which I believe none of them have ever read, and which is always amazing to me. I was at an event at Georgetown the other day with Steve Case, and the last time I had been there, Mark Zuckerberg was giving a lecture on the First Amendment. I literally wanted to rush the stage and said, you need to read it first before discussing it. It's the first one. It's really short. It says a lot. It's a real good one because it's first. And he kept saying, we can't regulate or we can't do things. And I said, you're not You're a private company. Of course you can. You're not the government. It says the government shall make no law. I don't believe you're the government yet. And so, even the Supreme Court yesterday in this court case was like the government can talk to tech companies and tell them things are dangerous. Can you believe that that's a case right now? The government can't talk because of free speech. It's like bullshit. It's sorry, but it is. And thank goodness, in this case, they really are. They got it. They figured out this is such a trick by the right wing to try to suppress. To try to let misinformation flow, because misinformation's in their interest.
But that's the part where I feel like a lot of us feel sometimes like powerless.
Right, and so it's money. And so what they've done is they've slipped into a time when we can't make laws to guideline them, right? And every other industry, I was with Mary Barra last night, I'm like, how are you liking your regulations? She goes, too many. Obviously the car industry is not perfect, but it has regulations out the yin-yang. The pharmacy industry, not perfect, lots of them. The airplane industry, and I use this example a lot on this tour, but Alaska Airlines blows one door and 750 planes are grounded. There's an investigation, there's lawsuits, people are fired. That's how it works. Tech, no. Nobody gets fired, nobody gets sued, because the only law on the books that is there is Section 230. It protects them from immunity. It's not Donald Trump who could walk down Fifth Avenue and shoot people. It's the tech companies. That's who has that immunity.
Is 230, should that go?
No, because it's now so involved it's so tight into the body of tech, it's impossible to remove it. It's like a bullet that's grown into you can't take it out without killing it. But I do believe people should, like recently Mark Zuckerberg, who's actually a very nice person, I will say that, I don't care that he's a nice person. It doesn't matter. It's what he invents and what he does as a business person that matters. And responsibility he takes for it. When he was in Congress, you saw, there's a few things that happen there. So he goes there all the time, and they yell at him, and then they let him leave and do nothing. And so one thing is Josh Hawley, who is literally there's such a long list, but he's right. The reason I don't like him is because he's smart, and I really hate people who are smart that do this nonsense, that say stupid things, because he knows better, so it's all cynical. So, and by the way, he went to an elite college, not me. I love when they attack elites, and all of them went to Harvard. It's like, that's interesting. Yale, Harvard, which one did you go to? Stanford? They all went to that. Just go check out their education. Like Ron DeSantis. I'm just a simple guy. I'm like, who went to Harvard, Yale, and whatever the fuck. Church. It's just like, stop it. You're not a person of the people. You are an elite person, which I don't care if you're elite either. I go off on tangents, I'm sorry.
No, and so, because I have to do it, but if you had one thing on what people should do.
So Hawley is there, and he says, Mark, apologize to the parents. There's all these parents here that are being used as props by Josh Hawley, and they should be used as props in this case. They put up pictures of their kids who had been hurt online, and it was very gripping. It really, truly was. And then he says, turn around and apologize to them, and I almost was like, you need to apologize to them for not doing any regulations. I'm sorry. That's at this point, I get him. What's your problem? Because who in this room has the power, right?
Right.
So and so he turned around, and Mark looked at them, and I could tell he was upset. It was upsetting to see. To see people who think you killed their kid, and instead of saying, "I'm sorry for what I invented hurt you," he said, "I'm sorry for what happened to you," which is very different. At that moment, I thought, oh, finally he's going to say, I'm so sorry for what I've done. He's a father. He's got kids. I thought, he's grown up. My boy's grown up. But no, he said, I'm sorry for what was done to you. It was such a moment. I was like, of course he said that. And what's the risk to him? He can't be sued. He's one of the richest people on earth. He has one of the most... What is the risk to him for admitting that he did some things that were wrong?
I'm going to come back to some of these regulation pieces, but I'm going to do
We need regulation. That's the short answer. We need regulation.
We need regulation. So I'm going to just say this is the Westminster Town Hall Forum coming to you from Westminster Presbyterian Church in beautiful downtown Minneapolis, Minnesota. We are sitting here with Kara Swisher. My name's Tane Danger. We're going to open it up for more audience questions. So people have obviously, I've got a bunch of questions from the audience here, but if there are other folks who you've been waiting for a queue, now's the time. Please put your questions on a card and bring them forward. I'd like to do a quick thank you to Mortensen Companies, who's our spring season sponsor. Also, invite you all back. Next month, we have Dr. Keiyu Jin, who's a professor from the London School of Economics. She was born in China, educated in the United States, and so she is going to be speaking on the U.S. and China, which is actually, we'll probably talk about that a little bit. And so that is coming up April 18th, so we would love to have you all back for that. Big thanks to our media partners, MinPost, a nonprofit community-supported newsroom. Their coverage is all amazing, and it is at minpost.com, and Sahan Journal, their mission to provide high-quality journalism for immigrants and communities of color in Minnesota. They're at sahanjournal.com. Last thing, Ms. Swisher is going to be signing books outside of here. We've got our friends from Next Chapter Books outside. It really is a very good book, so you should grab it and have this unique opportunity to have Kara Swisher sign
Funny,
it.
is it as opposed to the very bad books you sell here?
I've gotten diplomatic over the years.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
May I just make one more thing? But
Yeah.
You have a senator, Senator Klobuchar. I joke about Amy, but she's great, by the way. And I really have grown to like her. I've spent a lot of time talking to her, and I've interviewed her a number of times. And she has been trying and trying and trying to get a lot, whether an antitrust bill, an algorithmic transparency bill, a privacy bill. She has been working. It's something that probably isn't politically helpful to her necessarily. She could do a lot of other things. She wrote that giant book on antitrust, which I always joke to her, you could kill a poodle with. I recommend it if you're interested in antitrust.
Not killing the poodle.
No.
Reading the book.
Anyway, so I like a big dog. It's fine. Okay, sure. But she's tried really hard. And every time we interview, she always calls me. She goes, Cara, this time I'm getting it through. And I go, no, you're not. And she always is like, I am. And I go, you're not. This is literally our thing. And she has tried a number of times. She gets the stuffing kicked out of her by the tech people who spend so much money on lobbyists, and then both Democrats and Republicans who fall to that very easily, supporters that were going to support her bills. And she has tried and tried and tried again to do decent things, and they find some problem with it, which there's problem in every piece of legislation, by the way, but she just literally keeps trying. And the thing that she just wrote me was most disheartening is she finally got one bill passed, which is to increase merger fees so that you can fund the Justice Department and the FTC to fight antitrust issues, which we are in the middle of speaking of AI, if you want to talk about it, huge antitrust issues. This is Standard Oil winning. This is AT&T winning is happening right now. And she wrote me, and they were trying to, I don't know if she's fixed it, but they were removing the money that was raised specifically for antitrust fighting for our government, which is woefully under-resourced here compared to the tech companies. And they were moving the money somewhere else. They were taking it away from where it was dedicated. And that was the very least thing she could get past. It was just, kudos to her, I have to tell you. But she's not going to win here unless there's a groundswell of support.
So what there does seem to be, I don't know if it's a groundswell of support, but there's a lot of energy and a lot of conversation around is this bill about TikTok and
yes.
about ownership of TikTok. Mm-hmm. Just to start, and we've got a question or two here, just if you could say a little bit about what the actual threat that they are trying to address in the legislation around TikTok.
Well, this particular bill is a cloddish way of doing it, and Trump actually did an executive order. He was for it until he was against it, by the way, speaking of Bob Kerrey, because he got money from a TikTok person. That's why he's changed his mind, period. You know, the straight line between Trump and money is rather clear. You should be clear about that. Because he was quite vehement and correct that TikTok presented a national security risk. It does.
How so?
Well, I wrote a column about this about 5 or 6 years ago saying I love TikTok, it's the best new app, and I use it on a burner phone, just so you know, because Chinese Communist Party, I'm sorry, they are our adversary in tech all over the world, especially in cyber issues. They are our adversary. They are. I'm sorry. I know we want to all get along, but read Xi Jinping's statements and speeches, and you will understand what their goal is. Now, there's a way of the internet to be like the Chinese internet, and then there's our way. Our way is a mess. Theirs is authoritarian in the extreme, and it's a surveillance economy. We're a surveillance economy, but they want to sell us socks on Instagram. There, they want to follow people and control people. It's a very different. Look, I think there should be a privacy bill. I think we should rein in our tech giants. I think we should have antitrust. But this is a very different story. That's one thing. And one of the things they're debating right now is whether it's a First Amendment issue again. It's a foreign adversary that wants to buy a broadcast network that goes to 170 million people. They couldn't buy CNN, which is much smaller by a factor of like a zillion. They couldn't buy CBS. They couldn't buy a broadcast. This is an entertainment broadcast network that has the potential to be surveillance, and I'm not that worried about it, but it's certainly there, and propaganda. Now, you don't have to, I believe the TikTok executives when they say they're not meddling, but of course they are, because every company I've ever covered in tech in China has been meddled with by the Chinese government. Of course they'll do it. And just because and every national security person I believe them when they say this, and I know you shouldn't trust national security people, but in this case, you have to be naive at best to not understand that if you had this tool, you would use it. But because, FYI, we can't be in China with our social media networks, because guess what we do? We spy on them. That's what we do with it. Like, our government would immediately get in there and be like, yay. That's what they did before. You can see Edward Snowden. So I'm sort of like perplexed why it's a debate. It's a national security debate. And even if they aren't doing it, which they are, they absolutely are, they can do it. Why would you let a foreign adversary have this much purview and ability to leverage propaganda without some U.S. involvement? They don't let other things, they don't own chip companies, it goes on and on in other areas.
And so the bill...
And it's happened before. Grindr was owned by China, and then they unowned it, right?
So yes, so there was Grindr, which we'll call a gay networking app.
Yes.
Was one case where
They did it.
There was an ownership issue where, and Congress did something to say you can't own. So I guess the question is that what's happening here?
Right.
And is that enough?
No, because the way they've written it is cloddish, because that's what they do, because it had to be screamy. I did a really good interview with Mike Gallagher, who's head of someone I don't agree with on many things, but a very smart man and just a thoughtful, listen, we have so many disagreements, but he's actually someone who does his homework. And I think the way they wrote it, blaming just TikTok, it should have been a broader kind of thing. It should also we should have a privacy bill to start with, that would take care of a lot. We should have an algorithmic transparency bill that they'd have to adhere to. That would have taken care of it over the years. But I do think at this point, there's not a lot of choice here. And the thing is that's driving me crazy, and I think TikTok overplayed its hand here by sending out those little alerts. It's part of right to address the government or whatever. I'm like, I get it, but you look now like you really are manipulative, first of all. And the second thing is, any kids here? You're not losing your TikTok. It's not going away. There's too much money at stake here. Rich people love their money, and this thing is not going anywhere. It will be owned by someone, and it will continue, and it's not going away. It'll just be a question of who controls the algorithm. And personally, I think the algorithm should be revealed so that we see it. And when we see it, by the way, the algorithm is not going to come with the company. There's no way they're giving us the algorithm, because then we'll have actual proof that, or maybe not, but whatever, we'll know what they did. And
how do you feel about that? Again, you're a journalist and you are a pretty strong free speech person. The idea of,
why is it free speech? It's not going anywhere.
Well, but the idea of the government saying who can and can't own...
They do it now. This is such a lie about the government can say China, you can't own CBS. They can't. They can't do it. It's been for decades and decades and decades now. It's not free speech. It's a foreign adversary. It is a foreign adversary.
Would it be different if it were domestic adversary?
Well, you know what? Domestic adversaries, hello, Rupert Murdoch. I'm sorry, he's a domestic adversary as far as I'm concerned.
You refer to...
Uncle Satan. I call him Uncle Satan. Because he's very avuncular. When you meet him, you're like, what a nice, don't turn your back, Cara, walk out of the room backwards kind of thing. He's never. I sometimes call him Nosferatu too. But
That's good. That's a classic.
I think between Fox News, gerrymandering, and social media has caused more damage to our country in combination than any other thing.
So we got a question about that. We got a question because you're doing a lot of interviews. Has Fox News asked you to do it, and would you do interviews?
They have not. I want to go on like the 5, which I call the 4.5, but because Janine's not there every day, even if she's there, allegedly. I would completely go. Are you kidding? I'd love to go. I've been on Neil Cavuto's show. He's quite good. I like Bret Baier. There's my mother watches it on repeat. She makes her homicidal, so she likes that. But she's a good example. She thought COVID was the flu for a very long time, and my brother's a doctor, and I wrote a column about it in the Times, and Sean Hannity threatened to sue me, but of course, because he's a paper tiger, he didn't follow through.
So I want to ask one media question before we get into the other huge tech piece that we want to talk about. But actually, I'll ask it this way: talking about people you have sat down with all kinds of people.
I've interviewed Rupert Murdoch too. In the case of Rupert Murdoch, look, he got sued because of propaganda he was spewing there, and he lost the case. Why does he? By the way, he got sued. He's getting sued some more because of misinformation and propaganda, and he paid $1 billion. I think that's fair. He lost because he was doing it, and I think they are propaganda for the most part. And he paid the price for doing too much propaganda, and not, you know what I mean? And he was wrong about Smartmatic, and he hasn't lost that case yet, but he's going to lose it.
You've been very successful being a pretty dogmatic, for the truth and trying to find different things. For other journalists and other media organizations that are in that business, which I do think is separate from the business of different shades of propaganda. What is it that makes that successful? How do those media organizations sort of move into this next chapter?
It's hard. I think the book is a lot about it. If you come to it to want a history of the internet, you get a history of the internet, how that started. If you want to come to it about media entrepreneurship, I'm a media entrepreneur, and I've changed everything. There's a lot of really cool small startups that I think Walt and I started All Things D. That was the beginning. It was sort of the gangster one, right? But other people have done it. Casey Newton, Jessica Lesson, all kinds of people have done. Puck is another one that I like a lot. There's all kinds of really interesting new media in all colors, by the way, in all different types.
Is there anything that ties them together? Is there any through line?
Two things. One is entrepreneurship and a willingness to take risks by the media people. There's nobody more risk averse than media people in the old days, right? They just don't like change. And I was always like, why are we doing this? Why are we doing that? Stop being a nuisance, Cara. That was a lot. I got that a lot. And you'll read it in the book of me going, why are we not letting a computer do this? Why do we have a teletape machine? Why are we not investing in tech? I was constantly, because I knew these tech people, I reference this a lot on the tour, but when the tech people came, media people saw them as helpers or gonna, and I said, guys, it's the old Twilight Zone episode, To Serve Man. It's a cookbook. Again, plot spoiler, but it's a cookbook. And I kept saying, they want to eat you. And they're like, no, they're here to give us tools. I'm like, they're here to eat you. Stop. They're fattening you up, and then they're going to take all your things, and then you'll be left without economics, and then, oh no. And they don't care about media. Facebook doesn't want to be in media because it's so much trouble, and they have to pay the price. And then they get libel, and they don't want that. And so one of the things that you have to understand is they don't want any of the responsibility that comes with the press or the media, and they want all the gains, which they got. Google and Facebook own digital media now. And so what works is economics that work, right? And so the Washington Post now, there's 3 ways they're going here. One is small, where the costs and revenues, these are lower. That's what I've done my whole career. And it gives me power because I can say, go away to people. As long as my revenues are bigger than my costs, I'm winning, right? And they're actually very good that way. But it's not big. It's one of my businesses was $20 million. It made $10 million, or whatever, 6 or 12, 14 million. And that was great. And then I could say, go away to people if I...
So this is partially an economic story.
It's an economic story.
But what's the journalism
Well, you
part?
have to be small, and so you do have to cut. You have to make cuts. That's just the way it is. And some of them are quite impactful. I think a lot of them are quite good, the small ones, and they're doing really good work, but they're just small. That's different. And then you have, say, the New York Times of the world, which I think is the one that people point to, but it's a very small company. Everyone's like, the New York Times. I'm like, it's a $2.4 billion company. That is small. Facebook makes that in a week in revenue, okay? Like, and the profits are, the New York Times are not big. Very small, but good. The CEO is one of my friends and a fantastic CEO, but it's not a great business. It just isn't. And at any moment, there's all kinds of problematic challenges it faces.
Is there a Kara Swisher differential for journalists?
No, because I'm by myself. I don't have an assistant. I have 3 people working on the podcast, 3 people of each podcast. I worked on the book myself. I have low costs, so that works. And so you could do that. The other way is the kindness of billionaires. The Washington Post. It's losing $100 million a year. Who can afford that? Oh, Jeff Bezos, when he's not paying for his yachts that look like his fiancée. But I love that. Did you love that? Everyone was like, it's so tasteless. I'm like, it's so fantastic. Didn't you love it?
How could I not?
How could you not? What do you care if he wants to carve his girlfriend's boobs in a yacht? I don't care. Everyone was so mad. They're like, aren't you mad, Cara? I'm like, no. I like him better, and I don't like him very much, so...
Is the economics piece and the business piece is central, and I think that even that mind shift is hard for some folks because they haven't traditionally always thought of media companies as businesses, even though they always have been.
It's like show business.
Yeah.
The news business.
Right.
And if you don't have, and when I saw the underpinnings being pulled out, when I covered retail, and where there was, and you had this situation here with Target and Dayton Hudson. I covered them, by the way. I came here quite a bit.
So you got an awe for Dayton.
Oh,
yeah.
Back in the old days. That's over now. They're all just upset about stupid pride things that they freak out over. Who cares? But not that I think they should be there. I'm like, I can't believe they're spending their time on this and not real things. Retail came out, and so it took the underpinnings of newspapers. Classifieds got killed by Craigslist, and free news really made media companies have to say what their value is, and they tended not to.
But there's a way, I guess the last piece is there's a way to make a media company work.
Yes.
That has nothing to do with the truth or informing people, probably.
Of course, but that's.
But how do you do the two things together then?
Well, we have.
I know. How do we do that? We want to.
Because I've decided my value proposition is substantive interviews, and I believe people want that. I think that's a product people want. And so how can I make it in an economic way? And I'm very flexible to shifting. I ran a company that was advertising based, and I saw the writing on the wall, and I said, I'm doing podcasts. That was a time when everyone was like, can't make money. I'm like, I think it can. You have to be flexible to move and shift. And I think whatever it happens to be and attract audience, at the very basic of every business is, what is your value to the customer? You have to be useful. In some way, you've got to be useful. You've got to be entertaining / interesting / substantive.
Yes.
And you have to be must-have, meaning it's sort of like must-see TV. You can't get it anywhere else. Whatever you think of Scott Galloway, you can't get him and I anywhere else. We're it. And that's it. And that's you have to make that appealing. And that should be a discipline of media companies. What are you making? And try to not pretend that it's not a lot of things. The reason I like the CEO of the New York Times is she bought Wordle. She knows it keeps people there. So does the crossword puzzle. So does the cooking app. And so does the news. But it's part of a package. And so that's why it's doing well. Because and that's what news people lose, is that they think that consumers have to dance to their tune. And that's just never been the case on successful businesses. And so I think many in the media don't know a spreadsheet. I went to Wharton to take a spreadsheet course because I needed to understand what AOL, the tricks they were up to. And they were up to a lot of tricks. And so it helped me because I began to understand costs. And I think that's okay. And for some reason, media, which is so critically important in our democracy, cannot rely on the kindness of billionaires. It just cannot. If it does, look, Mark Benioff's a nice guy. Jeff Bezos is fine. He's not meddled in it. I don't know what his children are like. Now we're going to wait for his children to figure out if they happen to be evil. I don't know. And I'll end on this one thing. Years ago, there's a scene in the book where the Google founders, I'm writing a series of very strong articles. They were trying to take over Yahoo, and they would have owned 97% of search, which I feel is a monopoly. That I felt like, hey, 97, yes, for sure that's a monopoly. And I wrote a piece, and the FTC wasn't stopping it, really, and neither was the government. And I said, the government has to stop this. Like, this is ridiculous. This is kind of laughably ridiculous. And the Google people were like, we've got, colorful things. We're not like Microsoft. We're not like the evil empire. We have, like, multicolored bicycles on our campus, like that kind of, aren't we fun? Have a snack, you know what I mean? That's what's there. And it's from, it's kombucha we did ourselves. Like, I don't care. I don't care. Do that. Good for you. Like, not for me, but good for you. And so I wrote a piece that was very strong. And the line I used that offended them was, at least Microsoft knew they were thugs, right? Which I felt was kind of cut to the chase. And one of the founders called me, and he said, Cara, you know us. You're our friend. I said, first of all, that's your big mistake. I'm not your friend. You should get yourself from friends, but I'm not one of them. And he said, you know us. You know we're good people, right? You know we're good people. I do. They are for the most part. They're not. I don't put them in the in the evil category in any way. And he said, you know we're good people, and we will be good at this and this and that. And I said, I'm not scared of you. I said, I'm scared of what's coming. And I said, the Yeats poem, what rough beast is slouching towards Bethlehem waiting to be born? That's who I'm scared of, the rough beast. Of course, because they hadn't taken English literature. They didn't know that poem. And so they were like, rough beast? What beast? And I said, the rough beast slouching toward Bethlehem waiting to be born. And they were like, all the turning and turning in a widening gyre. I kept doing like this.
I love the gyre,
I know, gyre. And they're like, what? And I'm like, okay, listen. I'm not worried about you. I'm worried about the evil people who are coming, because they will come to, tech is a weapon and a tool, and the bad people want to use it as a weapon, and they will. History shows you, again, you didn't read. You need to read about what history does. And I said, I'm not worried about you, I'm worried. And their whole theme was don't be evil. I said, evil is coming.
But
always comes. And that was like, I'm sitting there with these people, educating them in real time. But again, it didn't.
The falcon cannot hear the falconeer.
Not at all. Exactly. Thank you for that.
Okay, so what advice, this is from the audience, what advice do you have for students looking to get started in technology, particularly AI?
Well, it's going to change everything. You really have to understand. And of course, it's controlled by all the big companies right now. There's a real problem here. Speaking of that antitrust bill, they cannot control it all. And our government needs to give guardrails and be involved. If we aren't, it's game over for us in terms of private companies making decisions for us. This is going to change jobs. This is like the internet again. Like if you thought the internet was disabling for jobs and everything else and changed our lives, and cell phones and mobile phones, this is the big game. This is the real thing. And it's where it's inevitably leading, and it will do everything. And a lot of it is going to be amazing. I just did a great interview with Steve Jobs' son, who's doing a great fund around cancer. He's trying to make cancer non-lethal, a critical part of that, and he's not trying to cure it, which I liked about him. But because you can't cure it, I think, from what I understand at this point, until the aliens come down to eat us and give us the cure. But because they want to eat us.
Because they want to eat us.
That's correct. So, there's a lot of really amazing things around healthcare. There's so much data that is not available. Doctors will be better. The information will be better. It's not good now, but it will be. The early internet sucked. AI in the future will be fine. It's called strong AI versus. Anyway, it'll be better, and there's so many applications of fairness, all kinds of things. There's also an enormous opportunity for bad people, for bias, for everything terrible you can imagine. And I can imagine it, and I'm sure a lot of you can.
And so one of the questions that we also got on AI was the spirit of the Town Hall Forum. What is the ethical framework around AI that we should be going?
And a lot of people are discussing it, but it's becoming capitalism again, and it can't. This is stuff that really can affect our elections in ways that you don't even, already it's
What should we look out for?
President Biden is dead the morning of the election. They could put that out there, right? I'm just like, this is me just coming, and it'll affect voting in that moment. Like, what? Is he? I don't know. This whole Kate, we're testing it with Kate Middleton right now. We're like, where is she? I don't know. What's the picture? I'm just saying the destabilization, I don't know what happened. I have no idea, and I have no information on this. But you can see it destabilizing. Like, who knows what's going on there? Is it her with a Google Drive messing with photographs? Doubtful. But it can be destabilizing. It could do things like, on either side, it could do things. It could do, Trump. They did a Trump is dead. I think they did one that was, or he was sick, he got beaten, or he fell. He didn't fall. Nancy Pelosi is drunk. Those were early versions of that. She wasn't drunk. Stuff like that, little rumors that go around. They could do, well, obviously, they're up in our grill on our infrastructure, on, I'm not worried about elections being stolen, but I am worried about elections security, like that kind of things, the security of these things. That's being addressed, of course, and it's a really difficult issue, both from a human and technical perspective, but there's all, oh God, you just use your imagination. If you were handed an iPhone, could you have imagined Uber? You couldn't have. Maybe. You didn't, because you're here. So not on some island.
I am very happy to be here.
Okay, good. I'm just saying you couldn't. And so I don't know what it'll be. Is it going to be killer robots, or is it going to be a cure for cancer? It's both, and who knows? And so we have to anticipate. The key line in the book is from a quote from Paul Virilio. If you pay attention to any quote in this book, when you invent the ship, you invent the shipwreck. When you invent planes, you invent the plane crash. When you invent electricity, you invent electrocution. Why is it we have a lot of ships and a lot of rich people getting rich off these ships, and a lot of crashes we're paying for, by the way, or wrecks that we're paying for? Why is it that we have a lot of planes with the rich people are getting rich with it, and a lot of crashes we're getting hurt by? Why is it we have electricity, which is great, really good on the whole, net positive, love the lights, but why are there electrical wires on the ground that we have to touch all the time? Why? Why isn't there a lighthouse? Why isn't there radar? Why aren't there telephone poles up there? That's the question you have to ask for yourself, because what's coming next is even more terrifying. It's also incredibly again, Star Trek.
On that note, can you all help me do a big round of applause? Kara Swisher. Absolutely fantastic. The book is Burn Book, A Tech Love Story. It is for sale out here. Grab a copy.
Yeah. Let me do this, see?
Ms. Swisher is going to sign copies. Thank you all so much for being here at the Westminster Town Hall Forum. I'm Tane Danger. We would love to have you all join us for breads and spreads out here. Get a book signed, and we will hope to see you right outside here. That was fantastic.